Morning, everybody. It's been a while since I've done a live version of this podcast, but it is what it is. So, welcome to two FMA-Nerds Talk About Stuff. I'm Coach Kurt, your host, like the rubber chicken guy. You know who the hell I am. But anyways, I am bringing on Joeykombat from Kombat Arts there in Mississauga. I'm somewhere in Canada on the East Coast. Anyway, so correct me on that. Blame me for my poor American education. So, anyways, we're gonna just dive right into it because we got some stuff to cover. So, anyways, let's do this. What's up, Joey? How are you doing, sir?
Hey, Kurt. How you doing, buddy? I'm glad to be on your podcast, man. Excited. Very excited.
Yeah, me too. This is going to be a lot of fun because I get to pick your brain, and you got a big brain, and I am so excited to dive into this because a lot of the podcast ends up being about culture and Filipino identity, which, I mean, we'll get to that if we get to that. Then the other half talks about, just FMA, because again, the title is Two FMA Nerds. And as a result of that, when we talk about being a nerd, I want to dive into the higher learning processes because, like we were saying offline, there's a lot of dogma and there's a lot of bullshit. So here we are.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we have similar backgrounds in that I've been doing martial arts for 30 plus years. I'm 53 years old. Nice. I still try to put my time in on the mats with the youngins and stuff like that. So I have a background basically of a combination of traditional martial arts, combat sports, like the usual list of boxing, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Savate, et cetera, et cetera. And then the more progressive martial arts like JKD, Kali, Krav Maga, defensive tactics, et cetera. So I've been very, very fortunate enough to have a lot of people share their knowledge with me. I own I have a martial arts academy with 3 other business partners. I founded it about 25 years ago. So it's still going strong, especially during the pandemic and paying off our loans and stuff like that. So I'm very, very fortunate. I've touched hands with a lot of people. A lot of people have influenced my teaching. So what you hear from me is probably a combination of them from the past and also from what I've done my own studies right now.
Oh, awesome. So let's back up just a little bit before we get too into the weeds. So as I share this out, could you tell us a backstory as short or as long as you want to as your life story, and then we'll get into your martial arts story, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So my mom came here from the Philippines. She had me here. I grew up in the welfare system. I grew up in a really rough area. And if you didn't know how to fight, you were in trouble. Oh, yeah. And so a lot of us were trained martial arts. So it was kind of funny. We didn't really know what we were doing, but one guy did karate, one guy did taekwondo. We had a guy in the area that was teaching us Filipino martial arts and boxing. So we flooded to that guy. And that was my first martial arts, was actually Filipino martial arts and boxing. And so you had to know how to take care of yourself in our area. And I'm not trying to make it sound like we're in a really bad area. It's just what it is. You're a colored person. If you didn't know how to defend yourself, that's just the way it was, right? And back then, if you had a bullying issue, you went out in the backyard, you handled it, and sometimes that guy ended up being your best friend. So none of the social media crap, we just handled it right away. And sometimes, yes or no, we ended up going to lunch at that guy's house. And then I did the traditional martial arts, I did karate and taekwondo and stuff like that. And then I joined up this one school called MAFA, and they had everything. They had JKD, Savate, shoot wrestling, boxing, Muay Thai. It was the cat's meow. And then I dived into that. And back then, 2 things kind of happened. I dived into these really cool martial arts. And I came from a time period when we had Black Belt magazine, Inside Kung Fu. And so I've seen it all. I've seen ninjas. I've seen Filipino martial arts, JKD era, reality-based self-defense, Joe Louis kickboxing. I'm pretty ancient. So I've collected all those magazines. I've seen it all. And I wanted to train JKD. I wanted, this is the best martial art, JKD, Kali, Muay Thai. I wanted to follow the Dan Inosanto lineage. That's the guy I wanted to train with. At that time, around that time too, I started entering the security industry. And I think people who do martial arts and they have a background similar to me, you're gonna start to gravitate towards that particular area. So long and short, I've done everything from working the door, prior to investigation, the guy hanging out in the lingerie section, looking for shoplifters, working bodyguarding. I did 2 stints with Microsoft. Was able to train some law enforcement people, private security, yada, yada, yada. So I've done everything except for electronic security. So I've done the whole gamut of hands-on and sitting in the back room doing surveillance work, casino stuff, really cool stuff. At the same time, too, I started taking martial arts really seriously. So I started getting my certifications, the usual thing. I went under Professor Salimusley, Larry Hartzell, rest in peace. And I thought JKD and Kali and all that stuff I was doing was really cool. Now let me backtrack and show you how we were taught this stuff. It was an hour class. And so we do 15 minutes of trapping, 15 minutes of weapons, 15 minutes of Muay Thai, and 15 minutes of shoot wrestling. We did the whole shoot wrestling series. And I go, dude, I'm a ninja. I'm a ninja, man. I could fight. I could fight in every range. And then, something was bothering me. It's like, something seems off. Like, I could do all this stuff. I feel like one of those kung fu characters from a Chinese 47 kung fu movie and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't know. I don't really know if I could actually pull this stuff off. And I was doing wrestling in high school. I could tell you our wrestling practice was way different than the way we were practicing JKD and Kali in our academy, right? And what I mean by that, obviously, was a lot of hands-on and a lot of getting beat up. Our ward is really uncomfortable, unitards and stuff like that. And I was like, dude, this is really different than what I'm doing here. And so I left the academy I was at to kind of like go and see, like my Bruce Lee journey to see if this stuff really works. I went to a boxing club and I got beat up by the instructor with a jab. Just by using a jab, he just beat me up. He was like, okay, you try jabbing me. I tried jabbing him around the ring. What an embarrassment. And he got bored. So he started beating me up with a jab. Then I trained with my friend who did Chinese kickboxing, which is just basically a marketing thing for kickboxing. And I got a beautiful spinning back kick done on me in the corner. And then I remember when I was doing all this stuff, I go, dude, this stuff doesn't seem to be translating. I don't see myself doing Pak Sao. I don't see myself doing any of this stuff, right? And then I got involved into Muay Thai. And I branched off on my own. I started opening my own academy. I had no wish to train competitors at all. Based on my background, I wanted to do more self-defense stuff, like more die-hard reality-based stuff. And then one of my first competitors, Sylvester Organka, who's actually one of my, he actually taught me later on Muay Thai and kickboxing. He came to me with a Sambo background. And I goes, I heard about you. And I want you to train me for a fight. I don't do fights. And then that was my first champion. And I sort of fell into the world of training Muay Thai champions, right? And that was basically on an amateur basis, professional basis, et cetera, et cetera. So I trained MMA fighters, Muay Thai fighters, kickboxing fighters, K1 fighters, and some Jiu-Jitsu competitors, right? So I fell into that part of the world and I didn't really like it that much, to be honest. I did it because at the time, I was probably good at it, and then I got burnt out because it was like, training fighters, you know how it is, Kurt. It's consuming. It's vampiric. They're just sucking your energy sometimes. So I gave it up to my senior guys, let them have it, let my legacy continue through them. We talked about that beforehand. They can carry on, let them find their own way, yada, yada, yada. Now I come back full circle now where I like training, I like teaching a lot of reality-based self-defense stuff, whatever that means, right? Currently, I train a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, wrestling. The striking I haven't done that much. I only do a little bit of striking because of just injuries I have. This year, I'm making a goal to get back into it. I do a lot of weapons. So I do a lot of knife fighting, offensive, defensive use of the knife. And I'm trying to work a lot of pistol craft skills through Todd Fossey's IDS system. So that's basically where I am right now. And I try to put in about 8 to 11 training sessions per week.
That's living the life. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm gonna start with what I have found in my short time of martial arts since I was a little kid is this thing about you start with the availability of what's in your local area. And depending upon if you're there for any length of time, you will go up through the rank system. But again, people move. Either you move or your instructors move in just time and circumstance. So it's really interesting to see and hear where people start and where they stay and where they come back to. And what I find amongst that journey is there's a martial artist, there's a combat sports participant, and then later coach. And then there's the realm of self-defense and combatives. And there's a fourth one in the professional martial arts as a stunt person, which is that's a whole fascinating area to go into in another life with far less but different injuries. That's where the path I would have preferred to go to for that area, because brain damage and everything else in body. But it's interesting where people start with striking or they start with grappling, and depending upon where they go with it, they'll either come to striking afterwards or they'll come to grappling afterwards. And like that's in my case, I'm coming back to grappling after spending 25 years striking, and now that I'm broken and whatnot, it's like I can't take the damage, nor can I jump in the air and do the fun spinning kicky shit. So I've grown to appreciate 40-year-old grappling. So
yeah, I know how that feels too. And right now, I forgot to mention too, I'm very lucky. I train a stunt team right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so my stunt guys, they're on the Reacher, they're on the Boys, they're on Star Trek. I think this young lady I train right now, she's actually working on the new offshoot of Reacher. I think it's Neegly. So I'm really, really lucky that I get to share my knowledge with them because I can cover different ranges. And so my job is to basically, I look at them as like stunt guys that can fight. So I want to make them fighters because they need to react and they want to have some realism to their scenes because the audience is getting more educated. And it's up to them to embellish it and glamorize it. That's not my department. I'm not young enough to do that kind of stuff. They train really hard. They typically train about every day, about 3 hours. And 3 of those days are with me. So it's really a lot. And I really respect the work that stunt people do. I think they're, you know what, you should like, I think like the Oscars or Grammys or whatever. I'm not really into pop culture that much. They should have an award for them. Honestly, they should have full recognition. These guys really work their ass off. So I really appreciate what they do for us.
Oh yeah, there is a thing about authenticity movement because you can see martial artists in the movies, and then you can see movies trying to portray martial artists, and like, it's just awful. I mean, the two greatest examples of awful is one, Iron Fist. That's just shit. And then, but it led to a better thing is Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, because as I understand it, he got some really heavy notes like, dude, you don't move well. And then 10 years later, before he does John Wick films, like he got his black belts in like judo, jiu-jitsu, JKD. It's like you can see he put in work. It's really funny because the community is so much more, like you said, so much more educated. So
and you know, we'll touch on this later on, and you know, you're talking about one thing that we've been discussing lately, especially with things we see in social media. There's knowledge of and knowledge in.
Yep.
I could have knowledge of a car. I could watch all the videos I want on how to drive a car. I don't, and comparing that to a guy who actually gets on the road and actually drives, those are two different things. And so when I see martial artists, now I'm not saying you have to be a street fighter. I don't have to see if they go out there and use a Ginsu blade on the street and learn how to kill people in the street. But when I watch people who are out there teaching stuff, there is a significant difference between knowledge of and knowledge in. And that is huge. It's not like I'm going to put together Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and put together knife fighting. I'm going to make my own program. It doesn't really work that way. You're studying grappling right now. There are many nuances of how to get that Kimura. There are many nuances of how to move and everything. People think, oh, I just have to shrimp it and get away. Well, yeah, how I shrimp against a guy that's 125 pounds is different than a guy that's 200 pounds and maybe has a little bit of training. Those nuances are really, really significant. And so when I see people out there teaching and I try to break down their technique, right, and take it for a grain of salt that it's a video. We don't really know what the intention of that video is. There is a huge difference of knowledge in versus knowledge of. And I think that's what you're trying to say when you look at basically movies. They're trying to portray that yes or no, right?
Yeah, I look at it from an academic standpoint because I'm in my master's program, and it's the issue of lived-in experience, so time in the field, and then academic approach of research and book learning, to use a lack of a better term, but again, academia versus lived-in experience, where they meet this interesting like intersection is where you get the great practitioners and instructors. Is you need a little bit of balance of both, and it's just in the same like within the military, where you got the lived-in experience of an NCO who becomes an officer versus an officer who starts out without any of that experience. And so there's a bit of a lag in quality, but then again, you get some people who are some outliers that are phenomenal academics and can apply and explain and educate, and then when they're put to test, they can execute, which is phenomenal. They
step up to it, right? And definitely for sure, they're definitely the outliers out there. You know what I mean?
So since we're on this track, what do you think? What is the responsibility of a martial arts instructor or just a martial artist putting out content as to reciprocity, responsibility, and or like quality, because as we're talking about lived in and academic knowledge of and knowledge of doing, what do you think about that?
Like, again, like, I want to like be gentle here and everything. We don't really know what the intention of the video is that they're putting out there, right? And everyone out there is like, trying to build their brand, so I totally get it, right? So some of the stuff out there is just probably a lot of flash and everything, maybe to get more viewers, whatever. But I also too, I think like, and how would we translate this on social media and video? It's really hard to do this. I think to a certain degree, a lot of instructors are lying to their students.
Yes.
And trying to say it as nice as possible, but like, they're like, if you do this drill, you will be able to defend yourself. Or this is the drill we're going to do today. And based on this drill, don't worry, this is self-defense. And, on the other side of the coin too, like, for combat sports, people think like, oh, if I could fight Muay Thai, I could fight boxing, ergo, I could probably fight on the street, right? Yes, no, whatever, right? I have a problem when people do these crazy drills, whether it's from Filipino martial arts, JKD and Krav Maga. And I can say that because I have accreditations in all of those martial arts. I've gone through the ranking system. I've taught it. I've been taught by great people and stuff like that. Some of our instructors lie to us. They lie to us. And when I say that, and I may hurt some people's feelings here, that, hey, you know what? If you do this drill and stuff like that, you could defend yourself. There's a lot of things missing from that. And, one thing I give you credit to is that when I see your posts, you're out there saying that, hey, this is missing the idea of violence. And that's so true. Even we could spar, like, part of our job as self-defense instructors is to get to representation design as much as possible. We want to get to the closest thing as possible. Now, we know that's impossible. All right. We're not going to be using real knives. We're going to be using real guns, stuff like that. I think Brother Richardson said this, and I'm not going to like obviously quote him exactly, but I remember in a conversation with him, we're one of the arts where we don't really get to express ourselves. A pianist, a musician, they could put up sheets of music. I could do a painting, da. If a martial arts, one who's dedicated to war and stuff like that, well, they would have to take someone's life. We're not doing that, right? So we're not fully expressing our art. We want to come to as close as possible to the representation design of what's going to happen and everything, right? How do we do that? I'm not going to do that by doing 10 rounds of Huba. I'm not going to do that by doing like the latest iteration of like Sinawali. I'm not, right? And I think there is a problem there where people sit there and go, hey, buy my course. I'm going to show you this cool drill and everything. Buy my course and you get to defend yourself. First of all, it's devoid of violence. It really is. Even if I spar, even if we put on all these gear and everything, go, hey, we're going to spar today, it's still lacking that element of violence. But hey, I'll tell you what, right now, we're getting close to it. And I think a lot of people, they kind of shit on combat sports. But I'll tell you right now, when it comes to combat sports, they're out there training. They're against a resisting opponent, right? They're training against someone who is not doing the perfect technique. I look at some of my guys, I go, dude, that is the ugliest Thai kick I've ever seen in my life. It will never be on the cover of Muay Thai International. But it lands. It lands. It scores. It knocked the guy out. If some guy won the UFC and his foot was off the ground and his cross was like this and he knocked the guy out and he won the friggin' championship belt, I'm not going to go up to him and go, hey, by the way, Kurt, I'm glad you won the fight. But, technically, it wasn't really a good cross. So I'm going to take that away from you. And so what
comment section though.
yeah. Comment section would be crazy. That all these armchair money back quarterback, you call it martial artists. But what I'm getting to is also too, when these guys show these really cool, nice drills or these scenarios on their social media, I go, look, I'm doing it so nice and clean and stuff like that. Yeah, you know what? Kudos to you. You're making a perfect technique. Perfect technique that looks so good. You and I know that's never going to happen in a real fight. Ever. They say that your ugliest technique in the ring is your best performance on the street. And I agree. I looked at myself in self-defense situations and surveillance tapes when I worked the door. I go, dude, I'm a martial artist. I look horrible. I want to burn my certificates. That looks disgraceful. What the hell am I doing out there? So when I see all these videos and everything, I think the responsibility of instructors listen, you need to have an honest conversation with your audience, right? I get it. You want to make a brand and you want to sell these perfect techniques, these perfect drills, all that kind of stuff. It never, ever looks like that. And I know people are think I'm kind of crapping on these drills. Yeah, to a certain degree, I am. I've been through there. I don't know if your audience know what a VHS tape is. I collected every VHS tape and DVD known to mankind of all these drills. You know, 50 steps to Pak Sao, 50 steps to Senawali, da 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 da. Didn't make me a better fighter. It didn't. It was actually getting in the ring, getting on the mats, and actually trying to apply this stuff. And I think our instructors have to do a better job in being transparent with the students and letting them know that, hey, by the way, we're missing these elements of violence. These are drills to build arguably any attributes, right? And we're going to discuss that because like there's been a lot of science out there saying now, how much does strength training actually carry over to sports? It isn't actually that much at all. It's more or less for injury prevention, if anything else. So yes, I'm building sensitivity. Well, am I going to be more confident me sitting there doing 10 hours of Huba? Or am I going to be more confident if I actually get in with someone and go, hey, throw a punch at me. Let me see if I can get a read on it. Let me see if I can actually do this technique. And now let me work with you. You're taller than me. Let me see if I can work with you and get a different read. And you're southpaw, or you want to be like Adesanya, you're moving kind of weird. I would rather do that. I would rather do that and like learn to ability to adapt and read versus me doing 10,000 drills.
Yep, it's the goal-seeking, results-preferred approach. Because if the goal is the Kimura, if the goal is a roundhouse kick offline, the path to get there can be varied based upon opportunity, intention, positive fight space management, the opportunity of taking the initiative, all those things. And so you can meander to those points, but if the goal is to execute that technique, does it really matter as to what you did to get there? And then some people would say for the perfect path of the great combo and flow locks and etc., they will argue that case like no, but if it worked and it landed, like you said, what's wrong? It did its job. Right. And
yeah,
so this is
Go ahead, Kurt. Sorry.
No, and it goes back to this whole misunderstanding because it's a buzzword in our community about ecological dynamic training, versus like goal-seeking, principle-based approach to training and execution of techniques or tactics. So I find it's a buzzword. It's also misunderstood and also misrepresented.
I think ecological dynamics right now is going to be the newest thing that comes out. I really feel bad for it because like I've been studying ecological dynamics lately. First of all, it's a lot of academia. That's number one. It's not really consumer or user friendly because the words and the terminology is not really easy to grasp. Like I just went through a couple of books lately and my brain is hurting me. Secondly, too, I think that people think that ecological dynamics is based only on constraint-based approach. It's only small-sided games or positional sparring or whatever. Ecological dynamics is way more than that because remember, it's a combination of dynamics learning and also too of ecological psychology. It's a psychology of also learning. And as a combat sports person, that is probably the one realm that all athletes forget about. You get them calling you the night before a fight, coach, I'm nervous. Give me some things that make me feel calmer before the fight. Dude, too late. If you've ever been working on those soft skills of sports psychology and stuff like that, you're done. Sorry. All right. That should be ingrained in our game every day, those soft skills of sports psychology, right? And I think like people forget that is one aspect of ecological dynamics that people don't actually practice. But as being a meathead, I like the physical stuff. So screw that stuff. Let's get on the mat and kill each other and play these small-sided positional games, right? I should backtrack a bit though, Kurt, and like, you know what, before I put my foot in my mouth, which I probably have, is that when I talk about like, I think there's value in drills, all right? When, like learning body mechanics, we'll talk about this thing called muscle memory, which there's no such thing. It's called automaticity and everything. I think there's good things about that. Don't get me wrong. And, 53 years old, I'm not going 100 miles per hour all the time. I'm doing these drills too as a warm up, yada, 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 keep my brain fresh for dementia and what have you, right? Left hand, right hand use, et cetera, right? All these things you guys know already. But like, if you're going to use these drills in the realm of self-defense or in a combat sports arena, you have to apply it. You have to get out there and use it. Otherwise, guys, I'm telling you right now, as an instructor, you're lying to your students. You're lying to them. I'm sorry, right? I'll give you my Instagram handle later on. You guys can call me up. We can talk about it later on, right? As a student too, dude, I was there. I thought I was the cat's meow. I've been there where I've looked at every black belt inside Kung Fu magazine. I was like, dude, I'm going to be like Bruce Lee. I'm going to wear Bruce Lee's underwear. I'm going to wear his yellow tracksuit and stuff like that. I could box out everyone to death. You know, dude, I've been in enough altercations on the door. That does not come to fruition a lot of the time. Now, did it work for Bruce Lee? Yes. He had the action capacity to do it. The speed, the timing, all of that kind of stuff. I'm not Bruce Lee. All right. During that time, the environment basically provides the stimuli. The environment would dictate the techniques and tactics that we use. During that time, arguably, right, we could debate this all day. I wasn't there in that time, so I don't really know. But from my instructors, those traditional martial arts or karate or whatever, they pose out there with that hand. People punch and lift their hand out there. And they're like, okay, yes, I'm going to get this. That combined with his action capacity of speed and stuff like that, hey, that was his time. Nowadays, people are damn different, man. People are some more educated. They're in the gym every day. Younger guys, they watch the UFC. They go, I want to try this thing called a guillotine, you know, whatever. A little bit more educated fighters are facing out there. Some of them are armed, multiple attackers. The game has changed significantly. And for us to sit down and go, hey, I'm going to keep doing these drills as they were taught circa 1960s, 1970s. And yeah, there is some elements that are valid to it, for sure. I think a sledgehammer in my toolbox is valid too. I think a ball peen hammer is useful in my toolbox too. I'm not using that all the time though. We need to download the latest app, the latest iteration of what's out there. And that may mean you having to get out there on the mats and actually questioning these drills and go, can I apply it against someone who's going to give me a little bit of resistance? And, you know, I was lucky enough that lately I've been able to train with, oh my God, I'm going to butcher his name, Henry Aikens. He's a 3rd-degree black belt under Hickson Gracie. He comes to our area. I go to a seminar as much as possible. And, you know, we've heard this phrase many times. But, you know, when your uncle says it, it makes all of a sudden it makes sense, right? He says something that we've heard many times. He says the truth is in the experience. Yeah, my God, epiphany. That's amazing. That's actually true. I would modify to say that your truth is in your experience because we can manipulate the experience a little bit, right? So yes, go out there and gain your experience. Am I going to believe that this warrior in the jungle in the Philippines, whatever, running around in a loincloth, had done these drills, and that it worked for him, and ergo it should work for me? No, I'm not going to run around modern day in the mall in a loincloth with a bolo blade and try that out on people unsuspecting on the street, but I am going to get as close as possible to task representation. If that means we're going to put on some gear, we're going to work, I don't know, like some like false, like fake swords with some mark on it, and we're going to be honest with ourselves that when we make a strike, that's probably going to be the end of the fight, then let's do it. Let's go there and actually put these drills to the test. And then you're going to find out what works for you. Now, can you revisit those drills and make those attunements? Yes, you can. You can recalibrate, or you can sit there and go, that drill was garbage. And I wasted my whole life learning that. And maybe with a sense of common sense, I need to actually get on the mats and actually practice the stuff against someone who's going to resist you. I'm not also advocating too, like some people say, like, should I go out there and spar to the death? No, I'm not saying that either. It could be like, when I look at Filipino martial arts drills, right? It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever, right? If you're defending that and you're doing calculus in your head, or you could do your grocery list in your head, dude, you're switched off. It's in this thing called muscle memory or automaticity, yada, 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 right? You own that at the particular time for that drill. Let's change it up. I get to feed any angle I want. I get to fake. Hey, I get to put it in my left hand. Why can't I do that? Why don't we see more drills for right-handed versus left-handed people? We don't. Oh, you're left-handed? Today you're going to have to pretend you're right-handed. And when it's time to switch, you're both going to be left-handed. Why don't we see it a lot? Because we're performing. It's the prettiness of the drill. It's the symmetry. It's to make the technical drill look really, really good. And then later on, we're going to tell our students, we could apply this for self-defense. Really? How would you apply that for self-defense? This student doesn't know how to make reads. And you, as a coach on the side, you're micromanaging your athlete. And it's not just the Filipino martial arts of JKD. I see it in my sports too, boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where coaches are like helicopter parents that kind of hovering around, micromanaging their students all the time. When you feast number one, you're going to slice and check and come back with this. Why can't you say, when you slice and check, what do you see? I see these possibilities. So what are we doing now? We're making our students better learners. They see action, perception, capacity. Their eyes know where to look now. They're gaining a knowledge of where should I look to attack next. After you've done this attack, what can he do? Instead of saying that he should do this, then your coach is kind of managing this choreographed scene that I would use in a stunt scene. Instead of educating your students of where to look on your opponent, right? That's the most important thing. Perception, what do you see? If I scoop a push kick, what is afforded to me? I could do a right tie kick. I could do a cross. But what do coaches do? You're going to scoop the kick, throw a right tie kick, cross hook, right tie kick. You could go to that. Don't get me wrong. But first tell them where to look. What should you be looking for? That to me is critical, especially in a self-defense situation. Because guess what? If you ever get into a self-defense situation, you can't call me up and go, hey, by the way, Joey, listen to this. I'm going to fight. He's going to do a push kick at this time. What should I do at this time? I'm not micromanaging you. I'm not the puppeteer in the background. And I think that's where I feel like there's a disconnect when it comes to all of these drills, especially with regards to application.
Yeah, I look at it from two paths because, this is always the lens that I look through is traditionalism and contemporary combat sports. Now, this turns into a conversation about culture, which it also applies to martial arts, is this idea of preservation of culture versus the lived-in culture and then creating something new. That applies to martial arts because you have the curriculum handed down from master to student. And the problem when you run into with a highly structured curriculum is you become a slave to the curriculum without any variance or opportunity to ask questions. Now, if the curriculum is very specific as to this is what we do because this is just what we do, and the understanding that the application is within this structure, say like Balintawak has a very structured curriculum. And it's put out there by G and Bobby, like, this isn't a fight. This is to teach you speed and reaction and all these things, but it's not a fight. But elements of that can be applied. But when we look at the presentation of the curriculum, it has a very distinct look. And if you're doing that, you have to do that. Versus free sparring, say like the Dog Brothers do and some PTK stuff, like there is elements of the curriculum in there, but it's the goal. What are you trying to achieve? It's win and die less often. So, and there is this constant debate, again, with the path of you have an instructor that's a traditionalist that is reliant upon the testimony and the stylistic path that was given before them. And so they end up being like a robot, a clone, versus like the combat sports coach who has the lived-in experience of, hey, I did this, I made it my own, works for me. However, I can pass on some drills and knowledge, etc. But the better coach also explains to the fighter, like, fight the fight you're going to fight. Don't fight it like I am. Because like in my case with all my fighters, I'm 5'6", and the majority of my fighters are taller than I am by at least a foot and a half. So it's like stand up, be tall, but like use the principles, use the concepts here, use the strategy, but fight the fight you're going to fight because you're not me, you're you. And I find that within the traditionalist route, they don't give the explicit freedom, or at least express it sometimes. They're like, hey, the foundation is these drills, these techniques, these tactics, but you have to adopt it for yourself and make it work for you. And and like I said, I see it in the traditionalist world of that's not as explained or accepted versus like the combat sports world. Like there is these foundations, but like you're in the ring, it's up to you, make it work.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that because definitely for sure, there's a cultural, I wouldn't say handicap, but a constraint. And also too, there is something about protecting the lineage of the property being passed down, that tribal method. So that totally makes sense to me. And then the other side of the coin too, for those that want to actually learn how to apply this for whatever reason, right? It's your job to do it. You're mandated, whether it was law enforcement, security, or military, or basically for self-defense and stuff like that, or combat sports. There is a lot of onus upon you to sit there and go, how do I actually apply this stuff? My only issue is that, again, is like when it comes to instructors trying to say that their particular drills or these drills are going to make you able to defend yourself, and without giving all the other information that's out there that's really necessary for you to do it. For example, how do you read attacks? Do you know even how to read attacks? Or like you said, am I just basically a clone that's basically like, following the route instructional drill? All right. For example, like I also look at Jim Carrey, that video, or, stab me like this. No. You have to stab me like this. All right. And everything has to be perfect for me to do technique ABC. Well, you know what? Maybe technique ABC is shit for this guy. And he has to find out another solution for him. And he may have to step outside the curriculum, or I don't know, look at another technique in the curriculum, or this is a scary thing, look at another martial art that may actually have the solution for him. So like, it sucks, right? Like at the end of the day, if you're training in Filipino martial system ABC or JKD lineage ABC, and if you're interested in application of these techniques in a self-defense or combat sports arena, and none of these techniques can help you. You're like, dude, I'm still getting punched in the face. I'm still getting kicked in the groin. I can't help myself, Then you're going to maybe have to look outside at other donor martial arts that can actually offer the solution. And I know like there's like this discussion about like the integration of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the Filipino martial arts. And that's what happened for me, right? So like for myself, like the reason why I like mixing wrestling, judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and the Filipino martial arts is because of my experiences. All right. So for my experiences, I'm 5'4", barely 155. Actually, I'm barely 5'4", barely 5'4", 155 and everything. And I worked the door, which was retarded. I don't know what the hell I was doing there. So all of our wait staff and our bartenders were these huge Mongoloids. And all our doormen were short guys, small guys like me. It made no sense whatsoever. But whatever, I got hired. And so, every time I got into a competition, yeah, you know what? We fought in an area about the size of about 4 bathrooms put together, a front foyer of a nightclub. And when we got into it, dude, it was close quarter. And if someone presented a weapon, we inevitably clinch. And because of the massive movement of the bodies, we ended up on the ground. And when I was started to study Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I loved it because what I liked about it was instant feedback of what worked. There were consequences to my actions. You want to put your head up here? Yeah, go ahead. See what happens to you. You want to extend your arm? No problem. Instantaneous external cues, feedback, the repercussions of your action if you do something wrong, right? Few arts do that. Or other arts do it really painful, like boxing or Muay Thai, and then you're done. You're done for X amount of time, right? So here when I was studying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I was enamored with the Filipino martial arts, again, 50,000 disarms, cool stuff, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, I would ask this guy that was teaching at our academy, I forgot what rank he was. I think it was a purple belt under Hicks and Gracie. And I go, so what happens if someone pulls a knife on you and you end up on the ground? Don't end up on the ground. Okay, good. Then I asked my Filipino martial arts instructors, I go, what happens if you end up on the ground? You're going to die. Okay, I get that. So let's backtrack a bit. I'm not looking to go to the ground. So let's get that first and foremost out of the way. It's not like someone presents a knife. I'm like, oh, let me hold your wrists. Let me drop back into the guard. And let me do some omoplata and let you cut my femoral nerve and whatever, my artery, yada, 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 right? I'm not looking to do that. Of course, common sense is I want to stay on my feet and maintain distance. We all know this, guys, right? So I'm not looking to the ground. So everyone else saying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, why would you want to go to the ground? I'm not doing that on purpose here, right? So I'm just saying what happens if I end up on the ground. I'm in Canada. I wear tight pants. I slip on the ground, whatever. My opponent, heaven forbid, is better than me. He's bigger than me. I end up on the ground. He decides to take out a knife and starts acupuncturing me. No, stop. We can't do that because I'm on the ground. Let's get back up. And let's reassume the fight. That's bullshit. And that's just one thing that I was like, okay, listen, despite me training with all these Filipino martial arts and jiu-jitsu guys, there wasn't really an answer that I liked that was afforded to me. And it was out of necessity because I was working in this particular environment. Dude, you better figure out a solution sooner or later because you're going to end up on the wrong side of the grass. All right. And so it's this experimentation. Now, I'll tell you how that happened. We learned some really cool stuff. I forgot, this is really bad because I try to give credit where credit's due. I learned how to do some really cool stuff from the guard against the knife. kimuras and arm bars and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if stuff's going to work. Let's go on the mat and find out. Now, did I pull it off? Yeah, I pulled it off few and far between. I got stabbed a lot. But I tell you what, I walked away from the experience going, okay, I have more information now. I now know what I have to do. And then Brendan Richardson came out with a really interesting system. I like his system too. Played around with that. I had more success with that. You know what I mean? But I'll tell you right now, what for me, my personal experience, and the truth is in the experience, in this case, my own personal one, I found out that what works for me was a couple of things. I have to learn jujitsu. Jiu-Jitsu for sure, and the nuances of wrestling and judo and jiu-jitsu helped me a lot within the sparring context of using a training blade on the ground. We're obviously not using real blades. I totally get it, guys, right? Just in case you're thinking we're going to do that, we're not going to do that, right? I get it. But in the context of that particular sparring scenario, I did very well. And jiu-jitsu and judo and wrestling helped me a lot. Now, guess what else was really cool too? Knife disarms worked for me in that particular context, right? Whereas before, when we're out, my school right now is 8,300. It used to be, I had a 15,000 square foot school. You could run all day. You could run all day. So when I grabbed that guy's hand, that guy was laughing. I could not put him against the wall. I wasn't able to really constrain his arm enough to, in effect, get a knife disarm, right? Now, people could argue, was I training knife disarms enough? I think I put in my time for knife disarms, but I got little to no value out of it. And that's just my personal experience. Now, where am I going with this? You need to spar it in a controlled manner to see what works for you, right? You need to question if the stuff really works. You know, and I tell my students, it's a culture of learning and everything. Yeah, question me. You know, go ahead and try it. What do I know? I like Guru Dan. My job is to present a buffet of techniques. You make the choice. You want some Italian that day? Good for you. You want some Japanese? Go ahead. All right. Try it out for yourself and see what actually works. Right. But that's what I found for myself. It's like, hey, this stuff looks good in theory, academically, but I got to find out for myself what works. Matt Thornton, great guy. I know I did a seminar with him. His jiu-jitsu seminar works really well for him because he's a friggin' giraffe. This guy's tall. I'm like a hobbit. Half the stuff he did, 3/4 stuff he did, I can't do. But it played well for me for edge weapon defense. I was able to really guard up really, really well because of my short, stubby legs. So how do I know that? You got to spar it, right? Most of the time, I outworked my opponents, right? My training partners on the mat, and I was able to get these techniques off. Then, how do I know that? What I walked away with? I have the action capacity. I have the cardio to outwork these guys. Is that a weapon? Yes, it is. It is a weapon. Conditioning is a weapon. But if you've never stressed yourself out, if you've never been in the ring, if you've never tried these techniques against someone who's remotely resisting you, how do you know your action capacity, your ability, your strength, your endurance, your mobility really works? You be like, no, dude, it does not work at all. You need to get your ass back in the gym. You think like ching, 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 scooping all this kind of stuff. You look good. Technically looks awesome. All that kind of stuff. Your heart rate is barely going over 80 because you're switched off. You think you're going to translate that into a street fight? No. When some 6-foot mongoloid has a machete or a hammer is coming at your head, good luck. Good luck. All right. I feel like I'm a little bit more confident, because I put myself in these situations and I walk away educated. And I'll tell you right now, I'm more fearful of a blade. I'm more fearful. I'm not just because I trade doesn't mean like, oh, hey, I'm passing out knives on the streets and asking people to attack me. Dude, I'm more fearful of the capacity of what my attacker can do to me. A lot of times I do grappling, I've been like inadvertently cut everywhere. You know, where's that number one? That number one is coming like this. It's all over the place. Then you compound it with sweat. That's a nightmare. It's a total nightmare.
That's an interesting segue into like this online discussion within the ethos and integrity of keeping FMA pure and safe and not diving into the cult of the knife and violence. Is this issue about, one, should we be training the offensive use of a knife? The answer is yes. Should we be training the offensive use of a knife from a criminal standpoint? the answer is yes. Now, the question is, should we be presenting that? Now, context matters as for the audience, but as instructors and practitioners, should we be presenting the offensive usage of a knife and also as the criminal or the bad guy?
Yeah, and so like, you know what, Kurt, you have me at a disadvantage because we're in the middle of discussing that right now. So
Yeah.
like man, I have mixed feelings about it. You know, I really do, because like I train in those so-called prison systems,
Mhm.
you know, and I train a lot of stuff because like for educational purposes, I want to know when it's being used against me.
Mhm.
I do. You know, I'm a self-defense instructor, and so there's a responsibility for me to understand my enemy as much as possible.
Mhm.
Right? I need to know what they're doing out there. I have mixed feelings about people presenting that material to the public out there. I
Yeah.
really, really do. Like on social media, I know, like, you remember Paladin Press? Are you around that time?
Yes.
Oh man, dude, I love Paladin Press. You guys probably don't know, man. Too bad for you guys. But Paladin Press was amazing back then. And
It's all right here.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
we got to talk afterwards. But I
Yeah.
love Paladin Press and stuff like that. And like, you know, man, some of the stuff that published out there was pretty scary stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, freedom of speech and kind of stuff like that. I'm sure you can speak more of this than I do as an American. You
Mhm.
know, is this information accessible out there? Yeah, someone else is dropping it out there. All
Mhm.
right. Do I want to be that person that's presenting the information out there? I have mixed feelings about that. And like, you know, like intuitively right now, where I stand in life, the answer is no. Right. I still have to have that internal dialogue with myself a little bit more.
Yeah.
I do train in it. I do study it. I do think there's a use for it, right? I'm uncomfortable right now with it being presented out there in public. I've seen a lot of arguments though saying that, hey, it's out there anyway, so why don't I just add gasoline to it or add fuel to it, right? I don't know. I just still feel a little bit off about it, right? Definitely revisit me. Hope you have me on a podcast again, and I'll have like some more thought about it. But I have been putting some thinking about it. I do train with Mark Medeiros about it in the Piper system. I do like it a lot. I think there's a lot of value into learning that system, from learning how to counter it or to identify when it's being done to you. Having people have readily access to it, I'm kind of like mixed about it. And I do
Yeah.
understand that it is out there right now. I do.
That's fair because I kind of sit on the fence with it as well, but
Mhm.
I do put it out there. But my workarounds on it is, one, when I put the pre-verbal qualifier in the context of the write-up, is look at the other guy,
Yeah.
see what they're doing. It's not about me being offensive, it's seeing like their path to protection and
Mhm.
demonstrating like the dogma that we have within whatever space of self-defense, FMA, etc.,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
showing that it does or it doesn't work, or we don't know. So that's one workaround that I have. And then the other one is I look at the dynamic as an American. It's like we have so much out there about our tactics, means, and methods of firearms and tactical training. So like there's this weird dynamic of knife training versus firearms. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
more readily acceptable about firearms. Well, the fact is firearms are just as and or more lethal
Yeah.
than a
Yeah.
knife
Yep.
because of its range and capability. So it's just like, I don't know.
You know what, like when you put it like that, I have to say I like the way you present it, because like, you know, I look at like I like Brendan Richardson. He posts a lot of reality based videos. I look at Blade Craft. He do the same thing, stuff like that. You know, it wouldn't take much for one person to kind of like reverse engineer what that person was doing, right? When I was taking my Krav Maga training stuff, like it was interesting. They would show us how people would train, how they would actually train to get close to officers and
Mhm.
close that gap and present a weapon into them, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's tons of value into that. You know, I
Yep.
just haven't had the space to sit there and go, are there consequences to my actions when I put it out there? I gotta think more about it, you know.
Yeah.
But I do like the way you present it, and I do appreciate it. And I think I would put that into my consideration, to be honest.
Yeah, because like the big thing, the phrase that I have coined, I don't have ownership of it. It's just a term that I like using, is criminal creativity. This goes back to the
Mm,
soft skills of like manifesting, uh, thinking about it, wargaming, being able to read. And part of that whole process of situational awareness is the reverse side of it, of how do I exploit the space so I can achieve the goal that I want and dominate said space. Because in the wargaming aspect, I look back into the military, is we would do just that, is how do we wargame to win in that engagement. So
mm,
what are our avenues of approach? What's our means and assets? How do we prep the field? All those things. And that applies obviously into combat sports, into combat, into self-defense and personal protection, because criminals good criminals, violent criminals, predators, I should say, do that as well, because they have the lived in experience of it, and they also have they've crossed that barrier of like, they don't care, they're just going to do it. So to learn from that, putting us in the mindset of like, how would they actually do this, and then practice it, it's very enlightening and informative. And where I find people who have the most resistance to that, and when I present it, is law enforcement, because the issue about the legal accountability of what are the tactics necessary to engage a criminal, and this issue about legal reciprocity. So it's a tricky space, but it's a very important space, because again, from warfare, we train the modalities and research and prep what our enemy is doing, just like we do in combat sports. We prep by looking at video and read and whatnot. But in the personal protection community, especially leading into LEO, I feel there's a deficit. However, there's a systematic like cultural shift, because there's so much content out there.
You know, like based on that vein of thought, like critical thinking, stuff like that, when I did my short stint with executive protection, we had to do a lot of training with anti-terrorism and basically identifying terrorism and their different methodology, you know, whether it's on the back of a motorcycle, driving up beside a vehicle, yada, yada, yada. And so like, it doesn't take much for one person to kind of reverse engineer what you would do if you wanted to be the bad guy. So I do see the validity, the value of doing that. It makes so sense. But it's interesting too, when we talk about, you know, this is a touchy subject for a lot of people, for those guys that do watch those videos who every day carry. And I know that's a conversation that has come up in some of your chats and stuff like that. And guys who carry weapons every day carry, da 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 da. I would have to say, like, if you are watching this kind of stuff, you have to be explicitly informed of what the law is, of what your responsibilities are. And I think like we get romanticized or enamored of like, oh, I'm carrying like 10 knives on me, and this is so cool and stuff like that. Look what I could do, and I've learned all this cool stuff. There are consequences to those actions. There really are. And there's psychological damage that could be done to you. You know, I'll talk to you about this more in private, but there's like some distressing stuff that can come out of doing EDC every day. I know quite a few people who EDC and stuff like that. And I gotta be honest with you, they lack a lot of confidence in their ability to handle themselves in an empty hand arena. They are so dependent on that tool. If they cannot access that tool in a situation, they're going to be in serious, serious trouble. And if they present that tool in a time when it was unwarranted, there are really like some deep ramifications of taking one's life or spending time in jail. And a lot of people who EDC and everyday carry and stuff like that, I think they make it really romantic and sexy, and they don't understand the whys, the training that's involved, the consequences of their actions, all that kind of stuff. So like, you know, it's interesting how you mentioned that, because like, I think that's some of the concern like some officers may have, is like those guys who do EDC, who carry stuff like that. That is a serious concern out there. You know, if you're carrying all that kind of stuff, do you even practice drawing? When would you draw? What does your self-defense philosophy even look like? Is that a holistic thing? Are you with your family? Where there's no possibility of exits whatsoever? Could you not make an egress whatsoever? All that kind of stuff. The minute you threaten with it, you're now going down that legal spiral, all that kind of stuff. What if you go for it and you can't get to it, and the guy recognizes you have it, and now he's beating you to death with it, and that's his legal reason, that's his self-defense reason. Again, I'm not a lawyer and what have you and stuff like that, but I don't think a lot of people put a lot of thought into that, into what that looks like for them, because they learn all this cool stuff and they go, I want to carry one. God damn it, I carry 10, you know? And they can never, ever really use it in real life. And I got to be honest with you, I've seen those guys. Those guys can't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. They can't. They can't. Yeah. They do not have the empty hand skills to do it. And I'm going to really probably maybe piss off some people, whatever, right? But like, those are the same people that feel that if I punch, I am going to do 10,000 techniques against you. All right, because you're going to pose there forever, because I own time. I have one of Thanos' rings. I own time. You don't own time. All right. They have no idea how time framing works. All right. It doesn't work like that. And I understand the drill and yada, 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 but they don't understand it. They may not understand that I can't do this 5-step technique against a punch. And that's the problem I have. You're lying to your students sometimes. You're saying like, let's use a self-defense technique. Where? What aspect of that is self-defense? Show me. Show me. They don't even know how to read the punch. I would put that guy in the ring against an amateur boxer. Read his punches. See what happened. Do all your parry and your gunting and your sumgat techniques and stuff like that. Let's see what happens. Do it against a boxer. They lack the ability to read these techniques because they're disconnected. They're decomposed training. They're devoid of any speed, any kind of timing, any idea of distance, emotion. Like, Kurt, you've been in the ring. Guy, there's a big difference between hitting the bag and, you're videotaping yourself. It's all good for the gram. You go in the ring, dude, you're exposed. You're exposed. Everyone's looking at you. You suck. Fuck them up. Da-da-da-da-da. You come back to the corner. You're drowning in water. 10,000 instruction. Go back and fight. Most JKD, Filipino martial arts, and Krav Maga guys, and I can say this because I have the certifications, so I'm not trying to knock on my own people, but I'm going to tell you the way it is, guys. You've never done that. You've never done that. You've never been in an arena where, dude, someone is trying to punch you in the face, all in the name of sport. Now let's take that and let's put it on the street where this guy wants to murder you over an ice cream cone. All right. And you're trying to rationalize with this person because, like, oh, I'm a better citizen. I'm going to try to rationalize with this person and try to talk him down. Da-da-da-da-da. He doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. And you're trying to rationalize with an irrational person. Now let's see your artwork. Let's put it to the test. I would have rather put it to the test way beforehand and walked away with some experience. I go, wow, maybe I need to spend time with a boxer. Maybe I am totally faithful to my martial art, which is no problem. I know tons of guys who, whatever, I don't agree with their art. I don't like their art. That's my problem, right? It's my personal taste. But they're ninjas. Dude, man, I had a Taekwondo come in and beat up some of my guys. He teaches the national team for, like, going on to the Olympics. He's amazing. Guy pulls it off. He looks amazing. It suits him. He made that art work for him. But I'll tell you right now, he's in there sparring with our boxers or Muay Thai guys. He's collecting data and he's walking away with what works for him and the adjustments he has to make. We do not teach our students the ability to problem solve and adapt. We don't. And we do it by diluting them by doing these incessant drills. That by doing these drills, don't worry. When the time comes, you will adapt. No, you won't. No, you won't. That's the hard truth. When it comes to motor skill learning, the science of motor skill learning, you're not going to adapt because you don't have the ability and you don't know how to adapt under those situations. You can knock combat sports all you want, but if done correctly, where they're actually in the ring working against a resisting opponent, they're making small adaptations to deal with the situations and they're getting reads every day. We should take that training methodology and implement it into our other arts that we love, that we're so committed to, all right? Whether it's the Filipino martial arts, Krav Maga, or JKD. Let's see how it works against a boxer. Let's see how it works against a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. Let's put it to the test, right? Obviously, like, I'm not gonna eye gouge the guy, right? Well, like, I could simulate that to a certain degree. Like, okay, I know that in this position, I could have got that eye rake. Would it have worked? Yes or no? I have no idea. Maybe he's mentally impaired. Maybe he's on drugs and alcohol. Let the fight continue. Let's continue on and see what happens. Let's go on, right? Why can't we have the discussion? But we don't because our art is so deadly. We are behind the veil that our art is so deadly. You know, I don't know. I don't agree with that. I don't. It is deadly. Of course, I'm not gonna, like, refute your ability that you poke me in the eye, kick me in the groin, crush my trachea. It doesn't affect me. Of course it will. But let's at least get there. Let's have a conversation and let's try to simulate as much as possible. I agree and disagree to what Matt Thornton says, right? Matt Thornton, you know what, he stood up a lot of shit a long time ago with his straight blast video set. And you know what? He hurt a lot of people's feelings, but it is what it is, right? If we both know we're in a fight, we're in a combat fight. I tried to sucker punch you, you tried to sucker punch me. We both failed. We now know we're in a fight in the middle of the street, fighting over a parking lot. I have no idea, right? If you can't land a jab on my face, what makes you think you're going to land an eye jab? If you can't land a left inside tie kick on me, whatever, you're going to kick me in the groin? Do you even have the actual capacity of footwork, the endurance, the timing, your accuracy to move around with a moving target who, guess what, is also trying to hit you in the face at the same time. How do you know if it's going to work? And
The
so,
answer
like,
is you don't.
yeah. And so,
You
like,
don't know until you know.
yeah. And this is like, yeah. And this is what we go back, circling back to the beginning of the story is knowledge of versus knowledge in.
Mhm.
I know 50,000 locks. I know 10,000 throws, whatever, say academically. I can tell you right now when I do wrestling, my wrestling coach is embarrassed. He goes, dude, what are you doing out there? Like, your stance sucks. You're still standing upright, right? You're doing things wrong and everything. So, like, all I'm asking is, like, be honest with your students. And if you're that kind of guy that maybe, you know what, you respect your instructor to the point that I am going to follow their, how do we say it, the prescribed instruction all the time, the curriculum, stuff like that. But if you're interested of applying your art and you're dedicated to it for self-defense or for combat sports or what have you, you got to get in the water.
I agree. I look at martial arts or this whole realm of punching, kicking, stabbing, and protecting me and those whom I love. I look at the aspect from the same viewpoint I do with academia. Is there's peer review, there's experimentation, and there's execution, and then there's adjustment. Yeah. So it's theory, experimentation, application, readjust, and it's that whole cycle. And on top of all that, you add the peer review aspect of making sure that your modalities work and see if there's a finer path to get there. So it's like constant refinement. And looking at it from the perspective of warfare, because martial arts comes from warfare. I'm going to say it again for people who don't understand history, especially the history of warfare. Martial arts comes from warfare. Violence is the basis of it, but the fact is, modern martial arts, the systematic curriculum structure of how to punch, kill, stab, and all these things comes from warfare. And so with that, with the speed and development of war, the phrase is at the speed of war, we develop training modalities, skill sets, and discard stuff that doesn't work for the current. Again, if you're not doing, you're not doing. So the things that we ran into, like say with the GWAT, is we were relying on tactics and techniques and methods and technology from, say, like 30 years ago, using some Vietnam era stuff, using some stuff from what we learned in Gulf War. But 5 years in, or even like a year in, a lot of these guys figured like, this doesn't work. We got to adjust. And then 20 years later, we got really good at it. Now, the problem we run into is the U.S. military and our partner forces got really good at a specific thing, fighting a specific enemy. And now when we're dealing with like peer, near peer, not to get political, but again, warfare relates to combat sports and self-defense. When we're dealing with a new adversary, like a near peer adversary, we run into this risk of, well, we focus so much on attention on this. Now we have to readjust, experiment, and to deal with that. So it's the same with somebody who spent so much time, say, as a striker, like you and I did, and then going back into dealing with grappling and wrestling and that realm. So you have to, there is a bit of a delay in application, understanding, reads, and then making it work for you. So the scariest thing that I find at 40 right now is a D1. Actually, no, I'll go back. Is a sophomore wrestler. That is the scariest thing for me to deal with right now, because full testosterone, strong, fast, has no off button, has no real risk, has no risk issue, and they just go at it. And they have so much gas in the tank. So at 40, it's like, that is the scariest person on the planet for me right now. And again, if you're in the Western Hemisphere, that is the same across the board.
Yeah.
Wrestlers, I call them scary ass wrestlers, are the primary issue that you have to deal with in a combative space. So your self-defense should be really dealing with what the adversary you're probably going to deal with. And the adversary you're probably going to deal with is someone who's going to tackle you and grapple you. Whether it's going to be good, that's a whole other thing. But the violence of intent at that moment, wrestling is terrifying. And that's why you need to go do it, to better inform yourself how to deal with it and to figure out what works for you.
Right. No, I totally agree with you, Kurt. Like, my current, I have two wrestling coaches. One was at the Olympics, and one of them is like, he's a body double from Hodor from friggin' like Game of Thrones, and he's a man child, and like it's embarrassing because like he'll be holding me up and explaining things to people, and I go, you can put me down now, like just put me back down. You don't have to hold me up while you're talking to the class, right? He's so formidable, and like, I look at that kind of person that I could potentially deal with on the street, and that's a nightmare. And when I hear people say like, I'm just gonna stop him with an elbow on top of his head, and because Saturn is aligned with Mars, he's going to stop, and then I could do all this stuff. I could tell you right now, on his gentlest day, when he's in love and he's been playing whatever, I don't know, like romantic music on his way to the club to beat me up, he still kills me. He still kills me. I can't even imagine this guy was like, he was freaking pissed off what he would do to you. And like most of my my guys at the club know who this guy is, Miles. He's a beast. He's a beast, right? And like when people sit there and say like, I'm just gonna mock him and he's gonna stop, dude. Again, we're going knowledge of versus knowledge in. But these leaders here in our industry, you know, again, they're lying to their students. They really are, and they're putting information out there because, like, again, I get it. They're arguably building their brand, but I kind of don't respect them because, like, they're lying to your students, and especially as an end user like you who've been there, and like, dude, that's a lie. And the people that prop these guys up too, the like, people who out there and go, yeah, I support these guys and da 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 da. You're not doing your students a favor because like this is not like realistic training. It really isn't. And you know what the sad thing is, like we've all gone through that journey through those black belt magazines for the older guys like us, right? We've seen the evolution of training. The UFC, it's a combat sport. I totally get it, right? But it is an arena where we've been able to see what works or what doesn't work. All right. It's crazy. Now, I'm not saying that basically we're going to like whatchamacallit, try to compare and say that combat sports is self-defense. I get it. It's not, right? Like there's obviously a lot of missing elements. And if we're still arguing about that, guys, come on, grow up. All right. We all know that combat sports is not self-defense, right? But like I said before, it's got a lot of training methods that we love, and they're out there actually testing their skills. And so, like, you know, we're talking about going back in time and basically looking at what worked. There was a comment on Facebook I read the other day that knife disarms work. And knife disarms work because there are 3,000 years of knife disarms out there of evidence. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. All right. Where? Are you trying to tell me that someone wrote on the leaf? There's some guy out there writing every incident of disarms out there? First of all, you're cherry picking your argument. When you look at critical thinking, you're cherry picking your argument, because tell me otherwise too, the stats that show that disarms did not work. Show me all the other instances where disarms don't work. I'm going to bet you there's a lot of times that disarms did not work. All right. But you're going to pull up 3,000 years. You're trying to tell me that, hey, in 3,000 years, it's been shown that disarms work. That's bull. That's bullshit, guys. There's no one out there that I can tell you right now is writing on whatever, toilet paper, palm leaves, whatever in the sand, that at this incident, on this day, I worked this disarm. All right. The fact that, you know, that's actually, you know, accessible, I doubt. Right. Tell me the times when it wasn't actually done properly. Sorry, my cat's going to intrude any second now.
No, that's awesome. I got cats as well.
Guess it hurts. Yeah. I tried to block her out, but dude, these are cat burglars, man. They're really good at getting in here. I don't know how.
They're in charge. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. They're in charge.
But like again, like going back to what you're saying, it's this dogma. If the thing is like, hey, this guy did it 10,000 years ago, all right, and it worked back then. How do you know? Like, how do you know? Really? I can go to Vietnam, cut out a menu from a restaurant, frame it, and tell everyone I was part of Vietnam Special Forces. You wouldn't know any difference, right? How do we actually know that this actually guy did this 10,000 years ago? It's passed on through a tribal method. And I can tell you right now, are you trying to tell me in 10,000 years, no one had made any adjustments or iterations to it? None whatsoever? That's impossible to believe. It is.
Again, looking at the critical thinking approach to academia, because again, the study of history, this is my degree path, is you find this issue about lens, perspective, preference bias, misunderstanding, disconnect because of culture, language, and time. So there's so much that's separating you from the truth and fact of what occurred versus all this interpretation that happens thereafter. And again, we just don't know until we know. And better yet, we don't know without absolute record, and that is video. Video is key. We haven't had that in the historical record, at least to our knowledge. But point being is we don't have video to prove without a shadow of doubt, and we need the full context of video, not just the little snippets for a reel, but like the full context of the video, and ideally from multiple views and multiple angles. what actually occurred and then what actually applied and how we can critique it, criticize it, and create stuff thereafter. And people just they shut their brains off when it comes to, again, training methodologies and the approach to how they deal with these situations for some reason, because they don't look the truly, and again, academia, but you have to experiment and apply and then go through that cycle again. But people just rely on the testimony of others, the beliefs of others, and not actually do their own work.
No, I agree with you. And like, I don't know what it is. I think it's exciting to be a coach, and you're respected a lot and people put you on the pedestal. My chapter is going to come to an end one day, or I'm going to move on to something else, at Kombat Arts or whatever. And even now, like, I find myself as the role as a coach is changing. I don't want to be the sage on the stage. I don't want to be the person where people come to me all the time for information. And so I think as an instructor, your job is to make better learners. And you need to have a culture of safety where it's like, listen, I encourage you to question what I'm teaching you and experiment on your own and see what really works for you. That's really how you're going to know. And it may, unfortunately, you get in your licks and you may walk away disheartened and go, oh my God, I suck. All right. And you're going to realize like, wow, I'm not that good at this particular thing, but that's good information. Don't get into a fight. I always tell people like, listen, part of self-defense is like your ability to escape. I don't want my students to get into a fight. You may realize you're horrible at all of this and you're going to try to avoid physical confrontation as much as possible, right? Self-defense is actually kind of like a last minute thing. I think like a lot of instructors like being the one, the go-to guy where everyone comes to for the information. There's like something that feels good, like I'm the all-powerful one. I know everything. I don't like that. My job is honestly to make my students learners. Most of my instructors now who teach me used to be my students. Most of my guys, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and all that kind of stuff, they're in turn sharing their knowledge with me, which I love. I love being a student. And I would try to encourage people to be like that, where you allow your students to actually go out there and see what works for them. And then you'll be pleasantly surprised that, yes, there's some that who are going to stay the course and go, hey, this curriculum verbatim works for me. And then you're going to find some people are like, you know what? It doesn't. I need to find another methodology that applies to me for self-defense. And you have to let them go. Because if you're truly genuinely concerned about a person's welfare with regards to self-defense and getting better, enhancing their motor skill level, let them explore other martial arts. You've had students leave that maybe like did Muay Thai with you and they wanted to do boxing at another club, or they did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at another club, or they did Tai Chi push hands. I don't know. It's up to them to find out what works best for them with regards to like learning these motor skills. I think that's really, really critical,
Absolutely. And talk about the sage on the stage. This is a good segue from Budo asking about the cult vibes or the cult of personality, and not just that ASP program, but just in general, because this is the pitfall of a patrilineal learning methodology. It's oral tradition within the tribe or within the academy, is you run this risk of worshiping the progenitor, worshiping the curriculum, and thereby creating a cult. So what can you speak on that? I mean, you've done a little bit here, but what else can you talk about that?
About the cultism?
Yeah.
Follows the martial arts?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Like, to be honest, like, I think it's too late for people who are already in the system. It's too late. Like no matter what I say, you already drank the Kool-Aid. I'm going to talk to the people who are going to start taking up any martial art. Okay, so for those guys who are already in it, last hope. Keep drinking that Kool-Aid, guys. Sorry, man, because whatever I say, you're gonna refute me anyway, right? Don't put my address out there, Kurt. They're probably trying to find a way to kill me. But for those other guys here who maybe a little bit more open-minded or open to debate, or get into martial arts, I would sit down and have a discussion with your instructor. I really would have a discussion with your instructor and go, listen, what are your ideas of me also exploring other martial arts in tangent or in substitution of this art too at some time, and see what they really, really feel. Now, I suck losing students. I really do. From obviously a business point of view, and obviously it hurts you when you lose a student, right? As an instructor, you put so much time into them, right? But it's up to the instructor. That's his business. He's got to figure out what works best for him. That's the issue he has to deal with. But as a new student getting into the martial arts, be crystal clear of what you're getting to the martial arts for. All right? Are you doing it for the culture? Are you doing it to be part of a group? Are you doing it for just to learn martial arts? So I just want to learn the art. Are you learning for self-defense? Are you learning it to get into the ring one day? Then you need to honestly question the training that's being presented to you. And again, that may mean that you're going to have to spend some time getting some sparring in. Now, you should do that under the guidance of your instructor, of course. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that you should have these backyard MMA fights. I'm not suggesting that whatsoever. All right. But for those guys that, are getting to the martial arts, I think this is a good opportunity to have that conversation is, yeah, what is your why? Why are you actually going to train in the martial arts for? Because again, like I said in the beginning, I don't want to knock drills. I think the drills have their value and stuff like that. My issue was with those guys who are actually trying to apply it in the realm of self-defense and in fighting, right? You need to sooner or later get into the water. You can only swim on dry land so much. Everyone knows that phrase, right? So for those guys in the cult, basically, like, you're lost. I'm sorry. But I think, like, you know what? I would, like, have a little bit of thought, like, can I really defend myself? Like, really, like, do one day of sparring. Even instead of like doing the 1 to 5 drill, whatever it is, have a guy mix it up on you. And you're going to be surprised. You're going to be like, dude, where's my transfer of skills? Where's my ability to recall this information? Where's my ability to adapt? All that kind of stuff. You'll be pleasantly surprised what comes out of that training session. That's what I would recommend for cultism. For those guys that are already drinking the Kool-Aid, sorry, man. No matter what I say to you, it's not going to work, man. It's not.
Yeah. Because you already have your belief system. It's really hard to have people change the belief system externally, just like anything else, ideology, rhetoric, or whatever is. That has to be an internal process for a person to like realize that, oh, I'm full of shit.
Yeah, it happened to me. Like, dude, like, it happened to me. I got into a fight with a wrestler.
Yeah.
And I was doing wrestling in high school, and I gave it up. That was a stupid mistake. You guys out there doing wrestling, don't stop. This guy took me down. I remember clearly. We're in an alleyway. He took me down. He mounted me and just slapped me around. Ended up being one of my best friends, right? And I realized that, dude, I was ill prepared to deal with the situation. Same thing with Taekwondo. I think everyone did Taekwondo. I did Taekwondo. I got into a fight with a guy, got me to a headlock, and just started feeding punches to my face. Where the hell was my outside crescent kick? Not there. I can tell you that right now, right? And so, like, I hope that you guys will discover the truth that works for you in the dojo, in the academy. I hope you never ever discover this on the street. I hope that you guys never get out there and go, hey, this guy presented a knife to me. I watched John Wick. I could disarm this stuff, yada, 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 yada. And dude, that's going to end bad for you. I hope, like, the opportunity to see if this stuff works for you comes within the safety of your environment. Because I think some guys find out the rude way, and it's bad for them. And it damages them really, really bad. There are a lot of people, Kurt, you've been in some violence. You've been in the ring. You've maybe been in some violent situations. As a man, there are psychological effects to you when some other man beats you down. And I hope that you guys do experience that within the safety, the culture of your dojo, not on the street out there. Now, on the street, you can kind of get up and lie to other people like, oh, you should sit in the other guy. But you will live with that lie for the rest of your life. You lied to yourself and you lied to everyone else out there. And so, like, I think, like, going back full circle again, it comes back to, like, instructors being truthful. I really, really do. But, like, maybe, like, when we look at their value system, they just don't have it within their realm. They don't have the capacity to be truthful or to be honest with the students. Maybe they're all about making money. I don't know their intentions, and I don't want to speak for those other parties, right? I do chuckle a bit when I see these videos and I go, dude, that's bullshit. And if you're trying to, like, and I'm just being polite, I'm just being Canadian by not saying anything. And also too, I'll say that I don't really know. I'm going to give a little bit of credit to the instructor. I don't really know the value, what they're trying to do with that video. I have no idea, right? Like, for example, like, I have a couple of guys that obviously have bad technique. Every school has bad technique. I had a guy on the bag who's doing bad technique on the bag, and someone was commenting on my Facebook ad. They go, that guy has shit technique, right? And I go, yeah, you're right, he does. But that's not what he's here for. He's here to develop his social skills and to be in the presence of other people. So we're going to meet him where he's at. Self-defense, I'd probably advocate he runs. He becomes a track athlete and he works on his running skills and tries to run away. So, like, you need to kind of meet them where they're at. But as instructors, when you're dealing within the realm of self-defense, you got to be honest with your students, man. You need to look in the mirror and go, listen, am I lying to my students? I'm teaching all these great sensitivity drills and Junsao and whatever, Tansao and Biosao and all this kind of stuff. And it's great for the art. Don't get me wrong, right? I get it, right? And keeping students in your school because of our curriculum. You know, I get that too, right? I own a martial arts school. I'm going to, hey, guess what? To get to your next level, to get to your green belt, you got to learn these other 5 drills. You know what I mean? The next 6 iterations of Heaven 6. And yes, when you learn these drills, you can defend yourself. That's a lie. That's a lie. Be honest, people. Tell it the way it is. We're doing this for the culture. We're doing this for left hand, right orientation, the general physical preparedness skills, whatever. Is there carry over to self-defense? Yes, there is carry over to self-defense techniques, all right? But self-defense, like you know, Kurt, is beyond just gross motor skills. If you look at ecological dynamics, it is the whole psychology of it too. And a lot of people forget that. Why are you carrying a knife in the first place? Why? You know, this is a deeper conversation you need to have with yourself. Do you really lack that much confidence that you have to carry a blade? Would you not first and foremost want to make yourself a weapon? What's going on here? And these are uncomfortable conversations, especially as a man, you need to have with yourself. You know, these are really deep conversations. And you know how it is, Kurt, like when it comes to violence, like you men are supposed to know how to fight, right? And I know like
but if they don't they don't do it, they don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, and I don't want to get into like male female stuff here, right, guys? Like I know I think that females can fight too. I'm not saying that at all, guys. And I think like we do a disservice to females, in my honest opinion. We're the only species on this planet that teaches females to be nice. Every other species out there does not do that. They hunt, they kill. We do a disservice to our females. That's just where I stand on it, right? So I don't want to get into that battle of male versus females and stuff like that.
I can get into the history about that, dealing with Western.
Yeah.
But that's another podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I hope you have me back if I don't like kill your enemies. I mean, your audience too much.
No, this is great, dude.
Yeah, thank you so much. But like, yeah, like that's the one thing I have to say, because like when I train law enforcement people, I train defensive tactics coaches, I train people who actually turn around and teach this stuff. You know, that's my responsibility, right? And so, like, for example, I don't want to mention their names because of obviously privatization and stuff like that, privacy. I had these 2 people in my class, these 2 females that were taking my class. They're not part of my school anymore. And they were not that good. And they've been there for quite a while. And they want to get on a job. And they're smaller than me, right? I'm barely 5'4". I'm barely 155 on a good day, you know, if I don't use the bathroom. And they're smaller than me. And they were like, dude, you're so hard on us. Wait, if I talk with you, you're so tough on us. I go, damn right I'm tough on you. I'm so tough on you because you want to become a police officer. You have a responsibility to the community to protect them. You have a responsibility to your teammates. You bring a tool to every confrontation. You bring a weapon every time. Damn right I'm hard on you. And you're probably going to get hired. You know why? Because for whatever political reasons out there, right? And I'm not going to say females are not capable of doing that job. I think they are, right? So I don't want to get into that. But these 2 individuals definitely needed more training. And they were saying I was too hard on them. No. As a coach, my job is to be clear with you. If I wouldn't put you into the ring to fight, why would I actually think that I'd put you out in the street with a tool? Where you're going to protect the community and yourself, your liability to the community, yourself, and other people out there. And as a self-defense, and if you're in the realm of self-defense and law enforcement trainer, or whatever you want to call yourself, right? You owe it to the people around you to be honest. And going back to being relevant, we had an off the books conversation, stuff like that. If you don't feel like you're relevant anymore, then you owe it to yourself to upgrade your training as an instructor. You have to be on the mats. As an instructor, I'm not saying you have to be a 6-pack and have tattoos all over your face and stuff like that and carry 10 knives wherever you go. But you have to be on the mats yourself and prove the stuff if it's valuable yourself. This is where you have knowledge in versus knowledge of. And that's what I find a lot of instructors discount that. Some instructors go, I've done a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I know what it's all about. And now I think it sucks versus a knife, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, let's be honest. If I had a knife and you didn't have a knife, I would hope that I would win. That's just logical, all right? But to think that you're Filipino martial arts.
Uh-oh.
I need
timing out. Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. This happens on occasion. So what's going to happen is we're going to edit this out. And in post-production. But we're talking about here intellectual honesty. We're talking about professional responsibility as instructors, because it's really weird in anywhere else in the world that there is, especially in a professional setting, that there is professional standards of accountability for what you produce out there for liability reasons, because you have to be up to the current standard academically, legally, all these things to be a professional in your field. However, that's not the case with martial arts, and it's weird. Part of that is there's no major governing body out there to determine what is actually valid, what's bullshit, and what's up to the community standards, because it's a free market and there's no universal, like you said, oversight community when it comes to martial arts and self-defense, etc. And honestly, I don't know if we really need that or want that, but it is an interesting circumstance of this issue about accredited sources of information that are held to a universal standard, or at least a governing body.
Sorry about that. My cat unplugged my damn computer. People out there, if you want to know what hell is, get a cat. Get a cat. I have a dog
two,
and I have a cat. Yeah. I have 2 cats. I'm cat sitting and I have a dog. So sorry about that, guys. You know, that just shows you how cats can lead to an unpredictable world. Sorry, what did I miss, Kurt?
So I was talking about this interesting dynamic or just weird circumstance about, and this has come up several times, about there is no, in any other professional field out there, whether it's medical, athletics. I mean, I'll just stay with athletics. There's typically a governing body of determining whether it's valid, whether it's bullshit, whether it's accountable for responsibility and liability. But martial arts doesn't have that. No. Now, I don't know if we need, and this has been in the discussion as well, of do we need a governing body to be the major oversight about quality control, liability, etc., because of the issues about free markets. But if we're going to be teaching this stuff, there has to be some sort of accountability even within our, I guess, our space of instruction, our own federation, our organization, to make sure we're up to standards. Because martial arts, the intention of this is dealing with violence, whether from a civilian response to it or a profession of arms. So there has to be some sort of accountability and accreditation, but there isn't. And there is often the discussion that there shouldn't be. So it's a weird dynamic.
It is, like, you know, to your point, we do have, like, I don't know how it is. You're in Alaska, right?
Yep.
I was there for like 15 years ago for a fight. An MMA
oh, nice.
Fight. Yeah. My first female champion, first female MMA fighter. I was on
AFC probably.
Yeah. I've been there twice for nice. Alaska. Yeah, it's nice. We have governing bodies here. We have boxing commission, we have Muay Thai commission, kickboxing, grappling, etc. We don't have anything obviously for self-defense. We have obviously defensive tactics courses, which try to govern us. We have PPC team management systems. I have like my ASF. I had PPC a long time ago. I don't know. Like, I have mixed feelings about that, because like it'd be really interesting to see what the criteria is to see that one can teach self-defense. So like, for example, like I like Tony Blauer. You know, Tony Blauer for Chu Fendo and stuff like that. And that's what shows you like my old school stuff, man. And so I met Tony Blauer. I like him. I've done his course and stuff like that. Really cool stuff. He doesn't really have any accreditations. You know, he kind of just made it up, right? And like, look how much value he's done to the self-defense law enforcement industry. Like that spear arguably has come from other people, but we'll say the spear for now, right? That spear has been shown to be really, really like interesting. His outfit, his version of the Red Man or Fist outfit is really, really cool. His idea of sports psychology, really relevant stuff. So here we have someone that, I don't know what his martial arts background, but I can tell you right now, does he have any like academia accreditation, or does he have any? I have no idea, right? So would we discount him? I have no idea. And then you and I know people who have proper paperwork, and they suck.
Paper tigers.
Yeah,
Paper tiger.
They're horrible. And like going back to the cult and everything, like, you know, people sit there and say like, oh, he's got all this paperwork from X amount of coaches. You know what? Until I touch hands with him or I have to see what he's teaching, that doesn't mean anything to me. I think in the same vein of thought too, like we look at social media. I was looking at a social media conversation with 2 experts in our Filipino martial arts world, and it's disheartening. These are grown men. These are grown men talking about, I have X amount of followers, and you're mad because I blew up from this amount of followers to this followers. And I go, dude, you guys are grown men. you guys are like, dude, you guys are like arguing like how many Valentine's cards you guys got on February 14th. It's so lame. It really is, right? I get like you're building a brand, but it's kind of pathetic. And then even so, the people in the comment section are kind of like, oh, I'm gonna follow so and so, but he's got X amount of followers. Okay, you're part and parcel of the problem with the world. Sorry, that's it. Like, you know what I mean? I'm gonna say it as it is. You don't have any moment to stop and think for yourself of critical thinking. Just because this person is like, they have like X amount of followers, like how are they more credited than this person? You have no idea. And that's why at the other side of the coin, I try to be benevolent to see what their material looks like and not to pass judgment because I don't know what their intention is, right? Again, if some people are shitting on other martial arts just to make their own martial art look better, I think that's kind of pathetic, to be honest. It really is. And again, that shows to me that they're not as educated. And it's a sadness because these people are arguably leaders in our industry and people look up to them. And they have a platform where they speak to many people. And, you know, these people, like, you know, I go to my doctor and, you know, I trust them to a certain point to give me relevant information. I always get second and third opinions. If I'm going to a martial artist that, you know, I'm just talking about the layman out there. The layman out there going to a guy to go, oh, this guy's got 500,000 followers. Let's follow this guy. And yes, what he says is gospel. So it must be true. All his videos and everything. Dude, no. Please, before you drink the Kool-Aid, go out there and try it yourself. And I think for me, and I've had this, I'm very lucky. I've been able to like try this martial arts against other people. And that's, like I told you, I left my school to get punched in the head by a boxer, do try Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, all this kind of stuff. And I realized that JKD, the way I was practicing it and the way I understood it was not the cat's meow. I sucked. I totally sucked. You know what I mean? And I need to look at other martial arts. And actually, now I realize back then I was approaching JKD from an eclectic point of view. Take a boxing here, take a kick here, do a little bit of wrestling here. No, you have to live in that art for a while. You have to understand the nuances. All right. You have to spend some time in Japan, live like a Japanese person, yada, 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 before you can speak of the Japanese culture. All right. You can't just pick up a book in a library and go, hey, I understand the Japanese culture. It doesn't work that way. Right. Same thing with these martial arts. You have to live it for a little bit. Then you can go back and go, how can I integrate this into your own style of JKD? You have to revisit that Japanese, whatever culture again, and then come back with more information. So I think like when people shit on other martial arts, dude, it just shows a disservice to them as a martial artist, like a representation. And also, too, it kind of shows that you lack that information. You really do.
And I look at it as the principle of earn the draw. Before you can say something of it, you have to have the education and lived in experiences to, and also the critical thinking capability to determine whether or not to open your mouth, whether or not to follow, whether or not to suggest. And just as it applies back to like edged weapons and firearms, etc., engaging in violence, you have to earn the draw or earn the opportunity, not the opportunity, but earn the space so you can engage at that level with that skill set or that tool. And people, they just look at a lot of stuff that's out there and say, oh yeah, because they have done their work, the people I watch, but we don't really know actually if they have, because you could be somebody who's just highly entertaining and highly scripted and it looks cool, present good information, but do we really know they actually put time in the ring, time in the mat, time in the field? We don't know. And so when people look at that as a source of information and they rely on that and then they try to apply it, that goes back to the issue about responsibility of content creation. Neither side has earned the draw, whether it is to one, take in the information and to apply it in real life, because that's messy and scary, and just in the same with earning the draw of getting to the weapon, utilizing the tool, and engaging in violence. It's a scary proposition because, like, for people who think about self-defense, people who think about personal protection, is when you're engaging in violence, you have to earn that space and do all your other work, the soft skills that aren't sexy and get glossed over as a buzzword like situational awareness. But those are the skills that are most important prior to the engagement. Like you said, violence, hands-on contact is the last thing. But if you haven't earned the space and the capability of how to get there by doing those soft skills, you and everybody else, you're a liability and not an asset.
And like, you know, like I've heard some people say this, like I think Mark Medeiros made this point too. Show your work.
Yeah.
Show your work. Like, and you're going back to like basically accreditation and stuff like that and validation of your, like, you know, your background and stuff like that, having some kind of governing body. Again, also to complement your point, like we're the only industry where we can make these off the cuff remarks because I have a certificate lying on my wall. Like I have a certificate on my wall, so therefore I'm a ninja, right? But you never seen any material, any videos of me actually out there doing this stuff. Let's have me out there. Show me a video. Show a video. I'll show you tons of videos, tons of receipts of me on the mat, rolling around, getting beat up, etc., etc. I'll show you tons of videos of me on the mat with a knife. Same thing with kickboxing. Same with striking. Show your work before you can make these off the cuff remarks that this martial art sucks, da 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 da, and you hold some kind of degree or kind of belt. Let's see your work. And we're the only kind of people out there who kind of accept someone's word without actually seeing the work they put into it. Show me who you've trained. Show me your validation. Show me all that kind of stuff. Now I get it. I don't have 10,000 people out there that have defended themselves against knives. And we talked about representation of design. We want to get as close as much as possible to the situation. Show me your sparring footage. Let's see it. Let's see the work you've put in. All right. I could tell you right now, probably not. Probably a lot of guys haven't actually put the work down there. Have you actually been transparent and go, I'm going to work with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach. I'm going to work with a wrestling coach. Have I put the time in? Like I see the work you put in. And it was really interesting because like you guys were doing like a 2-on-1, like a Russian 2-on-1. And then the guy was countering by pushing your head. And I go, oh, that's actually interesting. And so like I was working with my wrestling coach, and the way we counter that 2-on-1 is not good with a knife, and you have to know that. Put the time in before you make these off the cuff remarks. Realize, like, have you put the time in? Can you give any value to the people with your experiences? Show your work. And a lot of guys cannot show their work at all. What they can show is how they perform perfectly on these drills. They look so cleaned up. But again, Kurt, you and I know that it's not like that at all. Violence is totally something different.
Yeah, it's the issue of when are you presenting curriculum, because presenting curriculum needs to be clean, especially as an instruction. If not, then what are you doing? But the other side of that is showing your work, whether it's drills and other live content. But the overall, like the approach that I have with Cooper is my primary training partner, is we are experimenting and presenting just for the curiosity of other people. And there is a bit of tongue in cheek where we're making fun of the community, because I am. So there's that. That's thus the rubber chicken. But point being is, yeah, I get mixed reviews about it, but it makes me happy. And it's been there always. So whatever.
Most artists for your benefit anyway.
Yeah. And also it works out better for like the algorithm, because for some reason they don't have issues with it when I'm doing scary knife stuff with the rubber chicken, but I'm still demonstrating the same thing everybody else is, but less scary. So yeah. But anyways, like presenting work. So men need to put effort in and be humbled, because it's important for our psychology. Men need a pecking order. We just do. And we accept that pecking order for our benefit. When an enlightened man does that, it's for their benefit, for them and everybody else. The man who doesn't and relies on a false sense of presentation capability, and which leads to ego, they're dangerous. It's the people who are the wannabes, who want to prove but don't actually put the work in. So this is the important, again, sparring, or I'll say for my case, because I'm diving really heavily into jiu-jitsu because I have the opportunity now to do so, it's very humbling. But the things that I find, again, going back to a scary ass wrestler, again, I don't want to tangle with teenagers, because I don't want to go hands on with them, because they're full of piss and vinegar, testosterone, and they have no off switch. So I have to rely on my tools, my soft skill tools of recognizing danger first, and recognizing my exits and all those things I need to do before I have to engage in violence. Because again, if I've gone hands on, I'm wrong. So I need to do all the other stuff. But when I do go hands on, I have to be able to survive the engagement enough that I can move on from there. And one of the things I have found working with scary ass wrestlers is, and especially with edged weapons, like I have two approaches. One, I'm learning jiu-jitsu because I want to learn jiu-jitsu, but I also have to go through the preference and bias protocols of like, what am I trying to do with this jiu-jitsu? And often I'm finding is because I carry tools often for my own reasons, is I'm trying to prefer to get to access to said tools to capitalize them. But if I haven't done my work ahead of time, I have not earned the draw. I've not earned the opportunity to pull that tool in such a manner that it is an asset to me and those around me, or it becomes a liability. And this is where putting in the work all the time is really important. And as I'm finding, as everybody else who does their own work, it's super messy and the fail rate is super high because the environment is so dynamic and it's chaos in a bottle. You can't put chaos in a bottle.
No, and I think, like, you know what, you're touching a couple good points. First of all, I compliment you on the fact that you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after so many years, right? It's really challenging and it's humbling as a man to, like, you know, put himself in that position, and like you're getting beat on other people and you're getting submitted. Like, it can be really demoralizing, to be honest, right?
I get to do it now. It's not
Yes.
that I have to. I get to do it. That's the why cycle of like, I'm doing it.
Yes. So there's 2 points there I'd like to comment on. So it's good that you know why you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And again, like, going back to people before, going back to the point of, like, how do I say this? Like, before the guys drink the Kool-Aid, before you take this martial art, be crystal clear of why you're taking martial arts. For example, like, I have a talk with my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructors about this, and I'm lucky that Professor Dave is into self-defense. If someone's coming to your class for the first time and you're teaching him self-defense, you better explain why he's between your legs, because he doesn't know why the hell this has any relevance whatsoever to self-defense. All right. And at least you are crystal clear, Kurt, as to why you're taking Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. All right. You want to be able to get back to your feet. You want to try to, you know, escape if you have to, because the particular context of the story, you need to access your other tools, then you're going to do so. Right. That's really, really important that you understand that. I think, like, some people that when they take these martial arts, they don't realize, like, yeah, I'm here to do self-defense, but later on they're doing barambolos or deep half guard, and they kind of move away from that. And then later on, maybe what happens is that after doing these countless drills, they're kind of diluted, or they kind of like gone down the black hole and thinking that that is applicable, maybe directly applicable to self-defense, and that's not the story at all. All right, and that's something that we got to be really, really honest. I had a second point and I forgot it, so you know, I was just babbling incessantly. It was a really good point too, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to come around to it later on.
Yeah, what else? So again, the approach to why I do what I do with jiu-jitsu is, one, I'm trying to learn it because I get to learn it, so why not? And also it's better for my brain because I'm no longer taking hits to the head. I'm not allowed to do it because, as we all deal with post-concussion syndrome and TBIs, I'm in that category because 20 years getting punched in the face. So there's that. So jiu-jitsu gives me that avenue of where at 40 I can play and still be combative and test myself and go through that protocol of shared suffering and building resiliency and confidence, and also humbling, because again, scary ass wrestlers, terrifying. Big dudes with capability, willingness to engage in violence and skill, also terrifying. And so I fall in the category of big jitsu, but I'm like on the smaller end of big jitsu. But there's some guys in my gym that are like, I'm going to roll with you because it's going to suck and we're frenemies, but I have to deal with this. I have to contend with this type of person. And just by default, big guys find each other. So there's that. But again, dealing with that problem set of big jitsu, like, you can deal with the big guy, sure, because there's a reason why there's weight classes, the reason why we use tools to deal with this, but still, it's very humbling to realize that you're dealing your size, your strength against somebody else's size and strength, especially if they're bigger. That's very humbling. And being able to impose your will upon them and survive that, you need that, because it breaks down the delusions and the lies and preferences that you have in your brain. And it's just, it's important. And for my case of big jitsu and all this, I have tools that I like to apply, or techniques that I like to apply, but there's things I'm just not going to do, because, like, trying to do omoplatas, I like it, an idea, but it's not going to happen. Going for kimuras, going for guillotines, playing with head and arm, doing all the like heavy positions, absolutely. But again, it's the process of what am I actually going to use this for and what I'm going to develop, versus I'm going to go for the full breadth of learning the curriculum because I get to do it. Not that I have to, I get to.
You know, I recollect now my second point, and you know, by you basically going out there and discovering this for yourself, you're coming away with a truth, your experience. And this is really, really critical for those people out there who want to apply to martial arts for self-defense or combative sports. You don't know until you know. And we've been saying this as a major theme throughout our conversation. You guys need to get out there and experiment and see if the stuff works for you. and you need to be honest, right? And like, like before we run out of time, like I think like there's a couple things I would like to share with you guys that would probably make your training a little bit better. All right. So like I've been knocking drills pretty much throughout this whole conversation and stuff like that. And again, in case you guys forget and stuff like that, and loading your guns or whatever, I'm going to reiterate here is that I think drills are useful, all right, to a certain point, especially when training the so-called idea of muscle memory. All right. There's no such thing as muscle memory though, guys. All right. Muscles don't have memories. We call it automaticity, right? It is important that basically you do these drills over and over and over so that you ingrain these neural pathways. You don't have to think about how to throw a cross, how to swing at angle number one, yada, yada, yada. The reason being is because it frees up your working memory for problem solving and adaptation. If you had to think about how to swing a stick and deal with this particular situation at the same time, your computer would crash, your brain would crash. All right. So there is value to drills. Now, for a lot of my people out there, you need to move away from drills. And even the training of drills is really important. And the most thing we talked about is you need to train your students where to look. This is really, really key. And then going back to holistically self-defense, the confrontation happened way before we laid hands on each other. It's on our approach. It's seeing the exits. It's the weapons of opportunity. It's recognizing that when I walk into this room, there is already a bunch of young, volatile men. You need to know where to look, right? That's really, really critical. Now we're confronting the person. Palms kill. Can I see their hands? Can I get on them? Am I able to bridge that gap? Do I have the action capacity to do that in the first place? This is another critical thing too that's really important. So do I train my students where to look, or do I micromanage them all the time, which is not a good coach? You need to train your students to be better learners, right? And that's really, really important. If I scoop the push kick, for example, they need to know within their capacity. He's a 6 foot, 200-pound Mongoloid. That whatever, what can he do versus what I can do? We're not going to fight the same way, and you commented on that before, all right? So what is afforded to him? What can he or she do? This is really, really important. So we need to train the students on where to look. Yeah, this is really, really important, right? The next thing is basically when it regards to basically these drills, you need to like step out of these drills and make it a little more, how do we say it, chaotic. And you use that word with regards to how fights are. We need to get close as much as possible to that chaotic situation. They're not going to look pretty, people. You guys doing all these drills, you're just performing for social media. You're performing for the gram. We all know, if you're really honest with yourselves, guys, that's not really how a real fight is. So we want to get to that as safely as possible. So I'll show you a gross negligence of an idea of this. I observed a weapons class recently. And again, I don't know the idea behind this drill, right? So I'm just going to say I'm just going to show you what I observed, right? I'm sure there's some mystical, psychological reason why they're doing this, but I can't figure it out. So the instructor's at the front of the class. People are partnered up, right, with sticks. He would yell, for example, the instructor, high left. And so person one would swing a high blow to the left side, his left. And person B would have to defend. What's the purpose of that drill? In the context of self-defense, that's bullshit. Who in the crowd is yelling, hit him with a high left? And then you're going to be like, yes, I see it, and I'm going to defend. I have no idea what the hell they're doing in that weapons class. None whatsoever. But that's bullshit. It really is. You know what I mean? First of all, maybe I don't want to throw a high left because I don't perceive an opening to that particular quarter. I perceive an opening over here. I don't know what I'm going to do until I actually see that opening. All right. How do I work that skill? I have to do some kind of limited sparring. I have to add some chaos to the drill. I have to take off the training wheels off the bicycle. I can't keep having some coach tell me what to do. Person B has to identify, see that, oh shit, there's a blow coming to the side. I better perceive it and act on it. I don't know what I'm going to do. Hopefully, if I've been doing things right, all those drills I've been doing ad nauseum, that automaticity will kick in. If it doesn't, you're dead, right? So like, that's the point. So are we micromanaging our students to the point where they don't even think anymore? They're not even thinking. We're telling them what to do every second of the drill, all to make it look pretty, right? And that doesn't work. So how can we make the drills a little bit more sophisticated so students have the ability to read? Can you read those angles of attack? It's not going to be a perfect angle, number one. It may look like this. It may look like that. It may look like over here. I don't know. All right. But I have to be able to read that, and I have to be able to adapt. All right. What if we change the drill by allowing him to be left-handed? Now let's test the student's ability of transferability of skill. And also, too, are they able to adapt to the given situation? Because in real life, that's how it is in a fight. You have to adapt. That's the way it is, right? And like when you look at skill, some people say, oh, that guy's really skillful. What is he skillful at? Is he skillful at doing 100 iterations of Huba? Or is he skillful at the ability to take his knowledge, technical and tactical skills, and able to apply it to an ever-changing environment? To me, that's a skillful person in the context of self-defense and fighting, right? Otherwise, you're just performing like a friggin' animal at like SeaWorld, right? That's a totally different thing. So like those are the things that I would basically recommend for most people that want to see how they could change the training to take those drills and take the training they're doing right now and try to make it more realistic and move towards sparring. All right. Again, it doesn't have to be full out sparring. It could be, let's constrain ourselves to angles number 1 and number 2. That's it. Let's add an angle number 5 and see where we begin to fall apart. All right. Let's add some left hand techniques. It could be progressive sparring like Bruce Lee outlined in his Tao of Jeet Kune Do, where he has a progressive sparring outlined in the back of his book, right? Why can't we apply those same training methodologies? We do it for every sport. When we knock on combat sports, but if we look at other sports, soccer, football, basketball, and stuff like that, they're in the business of training motor skills. We are in the business of training fantasies. We are not training motor skills. We don't train motor skills. We don't bring in sports psychology. We don't respect time. We think that if he leaves his arm out there, I could do 50,000 techniques against it. Yes, if I do A, if and then, if A lands, then B lands, and C lands, and D lands. So is it possible that one thing can go wrong? Sure. Then show me your student's ability to adapt under that situation. Brother Richardson had a really good video where he showed a young man using a stop kick. And then the guy was able to circumvent that stop kick and close the gap. And the guy found himself in grappling range, right? Show me your ability to adapt. This is really, really important. And this is why this is what my training is like lately. And I think we've all, like the higher level coaches have been doing it. You've been doing it. A lot of people have been doing it. You know, the guys you've had on your podcast, credit to them. They're awesome guys. They're doing it too. But like now there's science actually to back it up. And it falls, for me, from my research, it falls under the umbrella of ecological dynamics. It's going to be the latest catchphrase and stuff like that. But I think people like, you got to do your work, guys. Like, you know what I mean? You can't be like, just like go in there on ChatGPT and going, give me the Cole's notes on friggin' ecological dynamics. It doesn't work that way, guys. You got to put the work into it. Ecological dynamics is not just constraint-led games. It's not small-sided games. It's a combination of dynamics learning and ecological psychology. And a lot of you guys are missing that aspect of it, which is really important. And you're doing it to service to your students because the psychology of fighting is huge. Especially we discount and shit on combat sports. And we see these guys who are out there who are data-driven, who are out there in the world of sports psychology, and they're giving us real information of what works, what doesn't work. These guys are out there actually applying their skills under a stressful environment, right? And we can see sports psychology being utilized. You know, they give us data. Like, tell me an industry, tell me a world where we don't get that much data. We know that how many punches are thrown in a boxing match. Waco does a great thing of like, whoever takes the center of the ring and throws X amount of jabs, X amount of crosses, they'll probably win the fight. Dude, that's data. Was it ADCC or IBJJF? They had what are the most common submissions? I think it was choke was number 1. And I think there was like, I don't know, whatever came after that, right? There's an armbar maybe, whatever, right? Those are stats, that's data. You're going to tell me you're going to rely on disarms from 3,000 years ago that someone wrote on a freaking palm leaf, and that's your data you're going to tell me? That's bullshit, guys. It really is. You know what I mean? You guys can crap on combat sports all you want, but to provide us a training arena, a modality that we can work with. And they have data of what works for them. Can you say that?
Yeah.
Can you say that? Or do you have anecdotal information that I did this the other day in the alleyway against this guy, or my instructor did this in Chili Hill in the jungle in circa 1600, yada, yada, yada. I don't care. I don't care, right? That's not relevant to me. I want to see, I want to get hands-on right now. So that's where I'll leave your audience at. You know what I mean? Hopefully that's some good information for you guys. You know, I hope I entertained you guys and I was able to like share some knowledge. I know I jumped around a lot. I'm very passionate about teaching stuff like that, especially when it comes to the teaching of gross motor skill. I mean, the motor skills and stuff like that.
Oh, this is awesome. I appreciate your time, willingness to share information. And I steal this from Jeff Johnsgard, who is my senior brother in NSI, is again, thank you for the gift of your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to do this again because this is only like a tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I wish I could share more stuff with you guys. I like to break down how, you know, I really try to break down my my lesson plans for you guys. I put some stuff on YouTube and everything, and some long content stuff about how I teach my lesson plans and stuff like that. So, you know, again, Kurt, you're doing great stuff. I kind of watch your videos. I'll be honest with you, I steal some of your ideas. I try to work some into my training plans and stuff like that. And yeah, I'll give credit where credit is due. Coach Kurt's got some good shit out there, guys. So please take a look at his stuff, guys. Got some good relevant stuff out there.
I appreciate it. And just the same for everybody else. It's not mine. I borrowed it from somewhere else and just put my own spin on it, as everybody else does. But yes, I appreciate you. And yeah, I appreciate everybody for hanging out with us and joining in the comments and where everybody's been and where everybody's doing. Again, the world gets better with conversation, application, and experimentation. You gotta push on the button. You gotta ask those questions, and you have to have the confidence and the bravery to do so. And also as instructors, you have to like not give the permission, but help like mentor your students for them to discover that they have the permission to ask all these questions. So,
yeah, you know, like Daniel Cole talking about the culture of safety, psychological safety. Like, you guys have a culture of safety, and you allow your students to basically approach you and have these great conversations, even though they're uncomfortable. I get it, guys. You love your martial art and you're loyal to your martial art. When it comes to saving lives, though, the application of self-defense, are you being honest with yourself and your students? That's all I'm going to ask.
Yeah, and that's a great way to end. I'm going to just hit the button anyways. But everybody, thank you. Go ahead and hang out. Yeah, go ahead and hang out for a minute. We'll chat in the lobby. But yeah, bye, everybody.